Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Creek, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt, and I'll be chairing today's panel. Joining me on the panel via Zoom is Gail Anderson and Jerry Arnell. Our administrative personnel today is Crystal Harland, and our assessor is Karine de Rocquigny. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will hear items 2 and 3, 6, 8, and 9 on our docket today. Mrs. Harland, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Assessor, would you please state your full name?
Karine de Rocquigny.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, would you please state your full name?
Grayson Sharples.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, Ms. de Rocquigny and Mr. Sharples. Today we have 5 items on our docket. Are there any preliminary matters that we need to discuss?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, and for each of these, it's an appeal of the assessed value of the property?
Correct.
Okay, then thank you so much. Let's begin then with file number 24-1011. This is 856 Century Street. Ms. de Rocquigny, please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for roll number 0700235600. We are defending the assessed value of $1,417,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of 2 buildings, 3 premises with 1 story, an actual and effective year build of 1964 with a wall height of 18 to 21 feet, leasable area of 10,692 square feet with a land to plan area of 3.16. The breakdown of the of the wall height, we have them both built 1964. The 6,063 square feet was 21 or is 21 feet, and the 4,860 square feet is the 18 feet wall height. Maps are provided on page 3 showing its location. It is located in the St. James industrial area. Aerial views are on page 4 and 5. Exterior photos, page 5 through 7. Page 8 has our rent comparables. They're net rents from the market in which our model is based off of. We've provided 16 rent comparables, all flex warehouses like the subject, with leasing starting in 2018 to 2022, an area range of 1,500 to 6,400 square feet, a wall height of 14 to 17 feet, an effective year build of 1963 to 1967, and a net rent of $6.75 to $8.95 per square foot. You will find our income workup on page 9. There are 3 premises totaling 10,692 square feet, has a blended rent of $7.92, provide a potential rent of $84,698. We've reduced that by a vacancy loss of 4.5% plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $76,535. We've capitalized that at 5.4%, in which generates our capitalized value of $1,417,315, rounded down to our final total of $1,417,000. You will find our capitalization rates on page 11, in which provide the industrial range of 5.35 at the 20th percentile to 7.30 at the 80th percentile, or 5.4, although on the low end is still within this range. Page 13 through 16 is the income and expense questionnaire we received, advising partially owner occupied on page 14. As well as advising the rent income, calculating to a blended rent of $7.07. A recent permit in 2021 for interior alterations on page 17, advising declared value of $29,000. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $1,417,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sharples, do you have questions for the assessor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one, I believe. Just on, I think it was, I assume page 2. Yeah, just with the subject sale history. You'd agree that this purchase price from 2020 is quite a bit lower than the current assessed value?
It does, and to be honest, I didn't get the chance to see what that sale is all about. But yes, it is low.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, was the assessment all model generated?
It is, yes.
Okay, and you have several pictures of the property. Have you inspected the property?
I have not, but there were a few of my coworkers that were able to inspect recently, yes.
Okay, so when would that have been?
It was 2 weeks ago before the brief was to be handed in. So about 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay. And the cap rate that is generated, 5.4, you referenced your table on page 11. So what line would I look at in regard to what you're referencing? It's industrial, but
yeah, for sure. I mean, it doesn't say whether it's industrial A or B. They are the same rates, but it would be the industrial A or B.
Okay, so the city's rates are the same, but the broker's rates are different.
Right.
Okay, so it's neither A nor B?
We don't have it specified. I would state it is a B.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are all my questions. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell.
Just one. So on that capital rate, I know you say it's model generated, but do you have any idea what it is that it takes into consideration to give it such a low cap rate? Like
There's
what
a
in
bunch
that model?
Yeah, there's always a bunch of characteristics. Typically the main ones being location, the size of the property, um, the land to plan area, the wall height, the effective year built. So a bunch of those characteristics.
There's not one that stands out.
Not necessarily. The typical one is if it's at a risk, right? And this one's typically at a low rate, would mean that it's at a low risk.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, I need to go into that a little bit more. So I appreciate you describing the characteristics, but what about this property and those characteristics make it a low risk?
So definitely it is an older property, but with the low risk aspect, it does have it is well tenanted, so there's no vacancy issue. As far as I know, history goes as well. With the leasable area being a small area space and 3 of them, they're easier to rent out. So that's a good attribute. Those are the main ones I would say.
So you talked about it's well tenanted with 3 leasable spaces.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it's in a good location.
Mhm.
What about the land to plan?
It is low, which is fine, for its use.
And what is its use?
A flex warehouse?
And how is, so flex warehouse doesn't rely so much on the land aspect?
No, it doesn't. No.
Okay, and can you explain why?
Yeah, basically any tenant would use this for, it's a multi-use facility, but not necessarily for, as far as I'm aware, for big delivery trucks to
Okay,
have to access.
okay,
But I haven't been there myself, so I can't say certain.
yeah, fair enough. What about the wall height?
It is reasonable. It's not very low. The majority is I suppose it's kind of half. The 21 feet is 6,000 and the 18 feet is 4,800. But it's not lower than the 14 or 15 feet. So it's about average. It's reasonable.
Okay, and you mentioned that you felt this was an industrial B versus an A. So can you describe for me what the difference between an A and a B is? I know the city doesn't distinguish. That's clear from your table. The city uses the same cap rates regardless, but the brokers do, and that's included in your table. So you must have some sort of understanding of what the difference of an A and a B are.
In my opinion, the main thing would probably be the year built. So a newer property would.
And what sort of age then would we be talking about for it to be an A?
I wouldn't really know, but it'd be. I feel like this is an older property, especially with the effective age being the same as the actual. There's
Okay.
it's not a lot of interior alterations that were done, just one recently. But I mean, it is probably close to an A being it in the St. James industrial area. So it's a fine line.
Okay, okay. And I just note that the broker's cap rates for a B start at 6, whereas your is quite a bit under that. So do you have any comment on that? Can you explain that in any way?
With the brokers being at 6.
Starting at 6.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite much higher than ours. I mean, the model put these rates for us, right? So it kind of just fits where it belongs.
Okay, no, that's fine. I understand that it's the model. I just didn't know if you had a little bit more information about that. I'm trying to pick your brain as much as I can. Okay, I have no additional questions, so thank you, Ms. Assessor. Mr. Sharples.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've provided a rebuttal document as well.
Okay, so we'll hear your main evidence first. We'll have a chance to ask questions, and then we'll move to your rebuttal. Okay,
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you.
So I'll just begin on page 3 of our submission. I'll give everyone a couple seconds to get there.
Thank you.
So again, just brief description of the property. We already kind of talked about it. It's a 10,692 square foot warehouse. It has an assessed year built of 1964. The current assessment amount is for $1,417,000. And we are requesting the board consider reducing the value to $1,275,000. Pages 4 and 5, we just have the income breakdown that we received from the website. And page 6 is our request. So we've kind of done two things here. We looked at the sales, and based on the average sale price of comparables, we got a value of $1,288,000. And then we looked at the income approach as well, and from that, we got a value of $1,275,000. So these both came out to pretty similar numbers. Our income value was based off an increase to the capitalization rate to 6%. And then since this was done on the income approach, we chose to use that income value for our request. And so we're asking the board to consider reducing the value to that $1.275 million. Page 7, we just have the assessment map and satellite image. And page 8 is just some street view photos of the property. So starting on page 9, this is where we've looked at the sales, as I mentioned. So we've identified some sales from 2019 to 2023. They generally range from about 100, I think, all the way up to about $145 per square foot. Our subject was assessed at a value of $133 per square foot. And so from all these, it looks like the average should be closer to about 119, 120. And we will make a note that the top sale we've identified here was from July 2023. So this was after the valuation date, but it's right down the street, very similar year of construction and building area. So we do believe it is still relevant and does indicate what the value should be. But so we did pull that one out in calculating the average, and from that we got $120.50 per square foot. And so that's what we use to calculate the value using this sales approach, and that would be the $1.288 million. Beginning on page 10, we just have some photos of all of these comparables that have been used. And those continue through to page 14. So page 15, we looked at the capitalization rate. There's already kind of been some discussion about this. But yeah, it was assessed at 5.4. So it does barely fall within the range that has been reported by the city of Winnipeg. But we've looked at these third-party reports, and we agree this would probably be a multi-tenant B. And we see the Colliers is reporting at 6 to 7%. CBRE 6.5% to 7.5%, and Cushman's got 6% to 6.75%. So the assessed cap rate of 5.4% is just quite a bit below this range that has been reported. And so yeah, basically these third-party providers are saying this rate should probably be between 6 and 7.5%. And so we've looked into this a bit more on page 16. So we've taken the sales that we had identified and tried to derive our own cap rate calculation. So again, we don't have the actual income from these properties, so we have to do our best to estimate it. So what we've done is we've taken the vacancy expenses and op costs from the City of Winnipeg guidelines and applied that. And then we've used comparable leasing. We have notes on the side of the table here just for how we've chosen some of these rents. So we couldn't find any lease listings or anything for 870 Century, for example, the first one. So we used the assessed rental rate for the subject property since they were so comparable. And then the rental rates used for all the other properties are just our actual leasing from properties in the area. And so from that, our cap rate calculations, they range all the way from 4.82 up to 8.79, it looks like. And that gets us an average of 6.24 and a median of 6.08. So again, from this further seems to support that the cap rate should be between 6 to 6.25%. And then once again, since that sale at 870 Century was after the valuation date, we pulled that one out and took the average, and it was 6.16. So this does support an increase to the cap rate, and it also supports our request of 6%. So 6% would be the lower end of the range from the third-party providers, and the average from our sales here was 6.16. So on page 17, again, here to summarize, we've looked at this. We've taken two approaches to this. The first one we did was we looked at the comparable sales, and we did remove the one that was after the valuation date. We used that to calculate a value of 1.288 million, and then adjusting the cap rate to 6% and taking the income value, we got 1.275. And so we are requesting the board consider reducing the value based off of the income approach to 1.275 million, but also consider the value from the sales. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharples. Ms. de Rogigny, do you have questions for Mr. Sharples?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one. In regards to your cap rates on page 15, and unfortunately, I don't know how your range was created. But so you had said, Mr. Grayson, regarding you had suggested the multi-tenant being at 6. And I see that's the lowest of the multi-tenant, and in comparing to ours being close to our lowest. Are there any properties that you have would be lower than your low end of the range, or is it always 6?
No, there's times when it would be when it could be below 6. Yeah, we usually just go to the lower end of the range because that's kind of a conservative bet. But yeah, I mean, if it was a brand new property or something, we could see it. Yeah, we could see it being below the lower end of the range.
Is there ever a time that there would be a property that goes with our model lower and closer to 5.4 like this subject, or no? It sticks to like your low end of the range.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
I suppose, is 6 the lowest that you would go for a multi-tenant?
Yeah, I mean, the third party data suggests that would be the low point for those properties. I mean, there are cases where it could be lower, I'm sure. I'm sure what they've got, it takes an average or something as well, and there could be some properties that are lower, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, questions for Mr. Sharples?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, Ms. Anderson?
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And so, Mr. Sharples, you indicated that you did look at a sales approach and you also looked at an income approach. And based on that, you are putting more weight on the income approach, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Just because it was done using the income approach.
Okay. Okay. And on your page, I have it as page 16 on the PDF. It's the one that has your calculated cap rates. Did you look at a stabilized approach or just 1 year at date of sale? Like, what was your methodology in deriving, the various rental rates, vacancy rates? Like, what's your methodology for that?
Yeah, so we just we only have so much information. So we have our leasing database that is frankly mostly leases that have been provided by the city in these submissions that we then are able to see and add to our database for moving forward.
Okay.
And so it's just a lease from.
So that's what I'm looking at on the right-hand side then, right? I'm seeing.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to scroll over there, but I think that's what I'm getting at there.
Yeah, so it kind of just notes which property the rental rate came from.
Okay.
So the second one, for example, the 975 a square foot, that lease, that was the rental rate on a lease from 1835 Hecla.
And would those properties that you took the rates from be similar to the properties that you're imputing them to? Sorry.
Yeah, these are all warehouse properties as well.
Okay.
And then we don't have the date or anything it was signed. That was just the best we had.
No, I appreciate your attempt, actually. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to understand your methodology a little bit. Now, Mr. Sharples, you indicated you do have rebuttal.
Yes, we do.
Okay, if you could just give us a minute for Mrs. Harlan to distribute that.
Yeah.
Everybody, the rebuttal is in the OneDrive, and I will email it to the assessor right now.
Okay.
And they're labeled by address in OneDrive.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Does ever, Ms. Anderson, Mr. Arnell, do you have it?
I don't see it. Labeled by address, you said?
Yeah. If you look under, just above item 2, you'll see it.
No, I'll refresh.
Yeah, I've got it. There we go.
Do you have it now, Mr. Arnell?
She's coming up slowly here.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Sharples.
I've just sent it to the assessor.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Ms. Assessor, do you have it yet?
Not yet.
Okay, you'll let me know when you have it. We'll just wait until you do.
have it.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Sharples.
Thank you. So begin on page 3 again. The first 2 pages were just the same summary as our evidence submission. So we just this again related to the sale from page 2 of the assessor submission. So we were actually unaware of this purchase in 2020 for $895,000. But using this and the properties that 10,692 square feet, so that purchase price would be $83.71 per square foot, which again was quite a bit below the assessed value of $133 per square foot. So again, we've included these are the same sales that were in our submission previously. We've just added in the subject property here. We can see obviously it is the lowest out of all these comparables. And so we have compared it again to 870 Century Street. I know this was after the valuation date, but again, we still feel that it does indicate the value. But we've kind of assumed that from September 2020, if it was valued at $84 a square foot, that would have increased to about $100 in July 2023. So that change is a 22.75% increase. So for the subject property, if we were to assume it would increase by that 23% from when it was bought, it would be a value of $1,098,603. And so that is about a little over 100,000 below our requested value. And so on page 4 here, we also have, this is from page 16 of their submission, was the income and expenses. And so we've also used that sale and then used these expenses to help look at a cap rate again. So if we just used the assessed NOI, that was $76,535. And the purchase price of the subject property, that calculated cap rate would be 8.55%. Obviously, that would be the current income at a 2020 sale price. So to try to narrow this down a little bit more and find the NOI at the time of the purchase, we use rental rates from the Viking Fire Protection and Reliable Parts. So those leases were in place at the time of purchase here. We see this Viking Fire was from 2009, and Reliable Parts, it looks like they've been there since 92. But that Viking Fire rental rate, $7.50, and the Reliable Parts was for $6.82 per square foot. So we've used those rental rates and then the same parameters as the other one. And so the top one here, so with a rental rate of 7.5, that would be a cap rate of 8.08%. And then if it were $6.82 a square foot, that cap rate would be 7.33%. And so we just believe that this further supports that an increase to the capitalization rate would be justified. And again, we are requesting an increase to 6%. And we would ask the board to take this into consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharples. Mr. Rokigny, questions on the rebuttal?
Just in regards to the sale itself, sorry, my computer can't see you guys. In regards to the sale itself, were you able to see if it was an arm's length sale?
No, we're not sure. So we'll acknowledge that we had not been aware of this sale until your evidence was submitted and it was in there.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, questions on the rebuttal?
Nope, my question's been answered. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions. Mr. Rokigny, do you have rebuttal?
I do not.
Okay, then do you have any desire for summation?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sharples, summation?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. That will conclude item number 2. So let's. Oh, I just got an application error. Oh, gotta love that. Let's go with item number 3 now, which is file number 24-531. This is 1205 Sherwin Road. Mr. Rokigny.
Roll number 0701080800. We are defending the assessed value of $7,541,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of 3 buildings, 2 premises with 1 story, a actual year build of 1966 to 2005. We have an effective year build of 1985. Wall height of 13 to 24 feet with a leasable area of 53,313 square feet with a land to plan area of 2.23. We have a breakdown of the first building, 1966, with square feet of 26,757 with a wall height of 20 feet. And as well in 1966, a 4,252 square feet with a wall height of 13 feet. And newer building in 2005 with a square feet of 23,361 with a wall height of 24 feet. On page 3 is our maps. It is located off of Route 90. Aerial views on page 4 and 5, as well as some exterior photos. And interior photos provided on page 6 to 14. Our rent comparables are on page 15. We've provided 9 rent comparables with leasing starting in 2018 to 2022, an area range of 21,257 to 31,987, wall height of 14 to 26 feet, an effective year build of 1974 to 1989, and a net rent of $6.50 to $11.50 per square foot. Our income workup is provided on page 16. The 2 premises total the 53,313 square feet, has a blended rent of $8.74 per square foot, provide a potential rent of $466,216. We reduced that by a vacancy loss of 4.5% plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $422,283. We've capitalized that at 5.6%, in which generates our capitalized value of $7,540,768, rounded up to our final total of $7,541,000. Our capitalization rates are on page 18, and our 5.6 is within this range. The income and expense questionnaire is provided on page 20 to 29. And indicates a rent of $6.75. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $7,541,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rokigny. Mr. Sharples?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking for the lease comparables. On page 15 here. So just the first lease here, you would agree that this lease was expired by the valuation date?
Did not. No. The King Edward?
Yeah, March 2023.
I did not notice that, no.
Okay, are these comparables all in the same, are these all in St. James?
They are not, no. There's the 1451 St. James Street. It appears most of them are not, only that one.
Okay. And then you mentioned on the, I haven't had the chance to calculate it yet, but you mentioned on the income and expense, they reported a rental rate of $6.50. Was that correct?
I calculated it to be $6.75 with what they provided.
Okay, and so were those leases considered in the, were those considered in determining the rental rate? Because I mean, that's almost $2 a square foot below
No,
what's been assessed here.
no, we kept it with the model generating it.
Okay. The model would include those leases, presumably.
Yes.
And so would does the model put any more weight on leases from within the subject? Like, is there any way to, like, does the model grab that at all? If, like, would it put more importance on these leases since they are within the subject?
Typically, I mean, there's a lot more as well, but yes, the ones in the same location, but also the same square footage, wall height, year build, everything, right?
Okay. I believe that was all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson, questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you. With regards to the square footage of the property, the leasable area, your presentation indicates there's 53,313 square feet. But then when I look on page 23 as to what's reported as actual leases, it doesn't add up to that. So I'm wondering where the city obtains the square footage to the leasable area.
And that's a very good question. Actually, Mr. Sharples and I have been in discussion in regards to the square footage, and it seems we don't, we are different on board with what they're advising of the square footage. This is what we've had on record. I've inquired on any documentation of the change in square footage, and there's nothing that we've received to say otherwise. So unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do to amend the square footage that they're advising unless there's a plan of the square footage.
Okay, so are you saying that like since 1966, from the time this property was built, that's the square footage that's being on the city's records?
Yes, and then the new building in 2005 of that 23,361 that added on.
Okay. Has there been an inspection of this property?
Yes, there's a few of my coworkers that went out 2 weeks ago to take those indoor photos.
Okay, and there was no discussion at that time of the square footage?
There was not, no. They had been advised that we are on different pages with the square footage, but they weren't able to provide any documentation.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Arnell?
Just one in regards to that square footage. So that they went out and took photos, and you say they weren't advised of what the square footage is. So why were there no measurements taken? Like,
Yeah, well, they were told when they were there, so they didn't have anything handy to do the measurement. I was able to do it through our aerial view, and it actually was over. I mean, it's intricate, right? You can go under and over.
right?
But what I gather, the difference isn't much less of what they're advising.
Of what they're advising?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like I was over, but I was doing like the on top view, but it didn't make sense that it would go much less of what they're advising, the differences.
Of what they're advising, so how much less of what you were advising?
So we have it at 53,313, and they're advising 48,500, which is a difference of 4813.
Mhm. Yeah, okay, that's all I had, thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Rokini, on your page 31, there are maps. So what do you need to calculate the square footage, and does this do it for you?
It doesn't, because it doesn't state the measurements on
Does
the
it
map.
have the measurements?
Yeah.
I
it does.
see some measurements there. They're really tiny.
They're very, you're right, they're very tiny. It's very hard to read.
And you can appreciate it's even harder for us because we're not looking at an actual document. So I do see measurements. Like, what does the city require from the applicant in order to determine what the square footage is?
I mean, I suppose, yeah, to actually go and take the measurements, because it appears this is what we've had on record all along from planning, property, and development.
And recognizing that this is an issue that's come up here at the board, does the assessment taxation have a plan to go and remeasure or look at this in more detail?
Of course, yeah, of course. I was set an inspection myself.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then we can make the adjustment.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, I have no other questions then. Now, I actually do. In respect to that rent of $675, you indicated that you calculated it. So you went to the INE, which is, or how did you calculate it? Did you
with what they provided on that page?
On that monthly rent, and it's a net lease. It looks like there's water included. Something else I can't. Maintenance, repair, something else is included. So did you net those out?
I did.
Or how did you do it?
Yeah, I just calculated their monthly rent. So annually, with both of them combined was a 359,676, and then divided by what we have the square footage.
So did you divide by that 5313, or did you divide by what they're reporting here as 5,400?
I did it with our 53,313.
So that's not what they're using on your page 23 then. Like we seem to have three numbers floating around.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can do it quickly here. So they're reporting the 48. So $7.42.
So if you do it on the 50,400, it works out to $7.42 a square foot.
That's what I'm getting. Yeah, $7.42 with their square footage.
Okay. Okay. I guess I don't have any other questions. So Mr. Sharples.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So once again, I'll begin on page 3 of our submission. And so, yeah, so the property's been assessed as 53,313 square foot warehouse on a year built of 1985. What we get from the city just shows us the combined effective year, I guess, if you want to call it that. I mean, we see now that there was two parts built in 1965 and 2005 or whatever that was, but for us it shows it as 1985. The current assessment is for $7,541,000, We're requesting the board consider reducing this to $5,772,000. And so pages 4 and 5, again, this is just the income breakdown that we receive. And page 6, we have our requested assessment. So same thing as last time. We looked at the sales. The value we got from those comparables was just over $6 million. And then we did an income valuation as well. That got us to $5.772 million. And that was based off a change to the area and to the rental rate. And so from this, again, this was done on income. So we are requesting the income value of $5,772,000. On page 7, again, is just the assessment map and overhead image. And then page 8 is just some photos of the property. So page 9 is where we start our own valuation. As I mentioned, the first thing we did was we looked at the sales. So the current assessment value of the property was for $141.45 per square foot. These comparables we've identified, they range from about 100, 101, 102 to about $125 per square foot for an average of about 113. Median 114. And so again, here based off this average sale price of $113.46 per square foot, that's how we've calculated the value for the sales approach. That would be just over $6 million. And once again, beginning on pages 10, we have the street view photos of these comparables. And on page 13, we take a look at the income side. So first thing we got here is this building area again. And so yes, we do kind of have 3 different numbers floating around here. The income and expense questionnaire that was provided to us indicates that the building area is 48,500. So this is a snippet of what we received, what the owner provided us. We just asked them to send us all these if we can, just so we're on the same page as the assessors. It'd be nice if we had the same documentation. Just ask any information they can provide us, and this is what they sent us. So it does have that area listed as 48,500. And we do have what they submitted beginning on page 23 in the appendix of our document. But that's the area we have, and this is what we're basing this off of. So that was for the building area. And if we just scroll down briefly to page 14, we have a similar thing where this is where they've kind of input I guess this would be the tenant verification form. Here they have their area as 24,000 for Clearline Technologies and 24,500 for Tamarack Industries. So that's what we received, and so that's the area we're requesting. We do have the same floor plans of the building, but we just didn't have time to go through and calculate the total area. We just didn't have time leading up to the submission deadline to go through it that closely. But back to bottom of page 13, top of page 14 here is we've looked at the rental rate as well. So the assessed rental rate was $8.74 per square foot. There are two tenants in this building. Clearline Technologies is the owner, and then Tamarack Industries. And so on the following page here, top of page 14, so Tamarack is paying $15,090 monthly in rent. So that equates to a rental rate of $7.39 per square foot. And so our value request is based on the income, and that income has been determined by this income and expense questionnaire that has been provided to us. So that was with that area of 48,500 square feet, and that rental rate of $7.39 for Tamarack Industries. And so at the bottom of page 14, we have provided additional leasing comparables that would support a lower rate. So these are all comparables generally from the area. I mean, Bunting Street isn't as close, but these range from, I think, about $5 all the way up to about $9.30. But I mean, these are all fairly similar in terms of leasable area. These are generally newer leases. None of these leases have expired. I don't have the lease end date in there, but this indicates an average of $6.78 per square foot, so quite a bit lower than the assessed $8.74. So this just kind of shows that there is support for a lower rental rate. We're not requesting a rental rate based off this table. We're requesting it based off that Tamarack Industries lease. But this is just further support for a reduced rental rate. And beginning on page 15, we have the images of our comparables. And so to summarize on page 20, so again, we've taken a look at the sales. Using the average sale price, we calculated a value that would be just over $6 million. We've adjusted the building area based on the information we've been provided, and used the actual lease that was signed in the building at $7.39 per square foot. We've done that to calculate the income value of $5,772,000. And we would ask the board to consider that value. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharples. Ms. de Rogigny, questions?
Yes, Mr. Sharples, have you had a chance to inspect the property?
I've not been to this property, no.
So the assessed value is based on the lower square footage, correct?
Sorry, could you please repeat that?
Yes, your assessed value is based on the lower square footage.
Yeah, based on the income and expense form that we received.
And there was no evidence that you would have received to show the lower square footage?
No, just the income and expense that we have in there. And then we do have floor plans similar to what was included in your brief, but it doesn't show the total area. We'd have to go through and add everything up, and we didn't have time to do that.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, questions?
No questions at this time, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Sharples, the information you provided on your page 14,
yep.
Would you agree that's post-reference information?
Yeah, so I believe this was the most recent income and expense mailer that was received. This is just the one they sent us, but yeah, this would have been after the fact.
Okay, and just you indicated you do have the plans also for the square footage, but didn't have a chance to go through and And do your own calculations.
Correct. What we have is very similar. It might even be the same as what was included in the assessor's brief, where there was no totals. We'd have to go through almost room by room and add everything up. And we kind of chose to work through other properties on this docket.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. So thank you very much. Mr. Sharples, did you have rebuttal? Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, we did for this one. I wasn't
Okay.
sure if I forgot to mention that or not, but we do. Thank you.
Okay, give us a minute to get the rebuttal evidence then.
Right at the bottom of our SharePoint,
Yeah, that looks like it. Yeah.
last document. Thank you.
Mr. Rokigny, let me know when you have it.
I have it, thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Mr. Sharples.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So once again, just begin on page 3. Just looking at the rent comparables that have been provided. So these were on page 15 of the assessor brief. So this first one here, as kind of mentioned earlier, 1866 King Edward, expired March 1st, 2023. So that was expired a month before the valuation deadline, or the valuation date, I guess. Kind of jumping out of order here, 2475 Day Street, the bottom, that was included in our leasing comparables. That was the table we had just after the rent roll from the income and expenses. So we agree that's a good comparable. The other good comparable we've identified here is 1451 St. James. This was the other one that is in the same market region. And then I have all these marked different region in the blue font beside 5 of these. So they do seem to be decent comparables. They are in a different area of the city, different market region. So we have added those to our leasing analysis afterwards, but the last one here is 1320 Ellis Ave. This appears to be for a retail space. It looks like it's a gym, a Planet Fitness. It's in kind of a retail area, and it doesn't appear to be a warehouse lease to us. And so we just have some support for these on the following pages. So 959 Keewatin here. We have just a big satellite image at the top to kind of show where it is in the city. So this is a different market region of the city. We have the star icon marking where the subject is. Hopefully everyone can see that. And then just street view photo at the bottom of the page. Same thing, page 5, 1460 Clarence Ave, 104. Pretty far from the subject property. And then we have this street view photo at the bottom of page 5 here. We see the leasing sign in front from Cushman. It says office space available. So I did look into this, and I pulled it up on Cushman's website, and it isn't for the same unit that was listed. So the comparable was, what was it here? Just over 21,000 square feet. that Cushman listing was for about 6,500, but it did appear to be for office space. So I mean, not only is this property pretty far away from the subject, it may be more used as office space than warehouse. Page 6 is 10 Hutchins Street. So again, this property is in Inkster. It's a different market region. Would have been assessed with a different vacancy rate. And then another street view photo of that one at the bottom. Very similar thing with 71 Paramount Road on page 7. And on page 8 is 333 DeBats. And so that's very far from the subject property, all the way out east. And page 9 is 1320 LSF here. So this is what I mentioned. So this is kind of a retail center. There are kind of 3 buildings. I think one's another kind of CRU retail building, kind of with 3 or 4 units in it. And the other may have been a restaurant, but it is a retail center. And so this lease was signed in 2019, I believe it was. I'll just scroll up and check. Yeah, so February 2019, it was a 15-year lease, 25,000 square feet. And so just in looking at these pictures, it clearly appears to be that space. So the photo at the top of the page is most recent image from June of 2024. We can see that there's a Planet Fitness in there. And then the photo on the bottom of the page was from April 2015. So this was before this lease came into place. We see a Winners was in that spot, and I believe it's a restaurant beside it there. It was under construction, it looks like, in 2015. But yeah, based on this, I mean, it is clearly one of those 2 spaces, either the Winners in Gisik or Planet Fitness, and then that other unit's appears to be vacant. So it looks like this was a more of a retail lease, that this was a Planet Fitness. This is a gym, but not very comparable to the subject. And so on page 10, what we've done is we've added these leasing comparables to our own. So we have included the properties we noted as being in a different region. So these are the ones like 1460 Clarence, 10 Hutchins, all those at the bottom there, we have included them still. And so adding those to our own, we have an average and median rental rate of $7.63. So that is about $1 below the current assessed rental rate, and it does align more closely with what we've requested. That was the $7.39 from the Tamarack Industries within the property. And yeah, that concludes the rebuttal. We asked the board to take all this into consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharples. Ms. de Rogigny, questions for Mr. Sharples on the rebuttal?
Thank you. Yes, I do. Unfortunately, I was unable to look at your comparables myself, but would you say that comparables would not be should not be used if they're in different regions? If they're not good comparables?
No, I think they're still I think they can still be good comparables. I mean, if the building's still similar in terms of year of construction and size and all that, we think they can still be used, and that's why we added them in and added them to our own leasing analysis on page 10 there. Just something that we wanted to point out, because I mean, the different market regions do have different income parameters applied. So I know vacancy for some I think is generally 4, but some regions is 4.5. So I mean, there are differences, but no, we do still think that they can be reasonable, and we've included them.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, questions on the rebuttal?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rogigny, do you have rebuttal?
I do not. No.
Okay. Would you like to make a summary statement on this property?
Sure, perhaps just a short one in regards to the square footage. That unfortunately it was at this time that we received notification of the square footage difference. Had we received any notification prior, considering that it was originally built in 1966 and the newer building in 2005, we wish we would have known before today or 2 weeks ago for the brief to be handed in. So that is all my comments in regards to the square footage.
Thank you. Mr. Sharples?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just add that, yes, there is confusion about the square footage and rightfully so. But I would just ask the board to consider the rental rate as well. The assessed rental rate does appear to be too high. And we would ask the board to consider reducing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that will conclude item number 3. Are people ready for a break, or should we do one more before we break for 10 minutes or so?
May we take a break, Madam Chair?
Okay,
Please.
let's do that then. All right, it's 10:14. What do you say, 10:25? Is that enough time, Mrs. Harland?
That's fine for me. Is it for everybody else?
10:25? Okay,
Sure.
let's recess for 10 minutes, please. Thank you. I'd like to call our meeting back to order. We're now dealing with item number 6 on our agenda, which is file number 24-749. This is 590 Berry Street. Mr. Rokigny, you may go ahead with your presentation, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Roll number 075901930. We are defending the assessed value of $5,231,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of 3 buildings with 1 premise, with 1 story, an actual year built of 1956 to 2001. We have an effective year build of 1957, wall height of 12 to 18 feet. Leasable area is 65,964 square feet and a land to plan area of 2.34. The breakdown of the actual year build is the first building built in 1956 with 52,560 square feet with a wall height of 18 feet. And a second one built in 1956 with 12,240 square feet with a wall height of 12 feet. And the last one built in 2001 for 1,164 square feet with a wall height of 15 feet. Maps are provided on page 3 showing its location. It is located on the west side of the city off of Dublin Avenue. Aerial views on page 4 and 5, as well as exterior photos on page 5 and 6. We've provided some interior photos on page 7 through 12. Page 13 has our rent comparables. They are net rents from the market in which our model is based off of. We provided 5 rent comparables with leasing starting in 2017 to 2022. An area range of 47,000 to 59,458 square feet with a wall height of 17 to 30 feet. An effective year build of 1961 to 1970 and a net rent of $5.67 to $8.27 per square foot. Our income workup is on page 14. The premise of 65,964 square feet has a rent of $5.63 per square foot, provide a potential rent of $371,377. We reduced that by a vacancy loss of 4.5% plus expenses at 3% with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $332,151. We've capitalized that at 6.35%, in which generates our capitalized value of $5,230,724, in which we rounded up to $5,231,000. You'll find our capitalization rates on page 16, in which provide the initial range of 5.35 at the 20th percentile to 7.30 at the 80th percentile. Our 6.35 is in the middle of this range. The income and expense questionnaire we received is on page 18 to 19, advising a net income of $271,702. At the top portion there, and at the bottom with the monthly rent, it's a bit different. It's a $274,784 with approximately $4.24 is what I gather. There is a recent permit on page 19 for the interior alterations in 2021 for a declared value of $68,500. As well on page 20, another recent permit for exterior alterations with a declared value of $700,000. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $5,231,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rukigny. Mr. Sharpos, questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've got a few on in looking at the income and expenses. Where did they go? On page 18 here. So the rental income here is reported as $271,702. Could you maybe just explain why this is so different than what has been assessed? I mean, the assessed potential income is $100,000 more than this.
Well, and it's a bit different at the bottom too. So I don't know how they calculated the 271. I mean, it's just a bit off with the monthly rent below there. But in comparison to ours is model generated, so it's what we feel could be the rent they could receive.
Okay. And then I guess you just agree that their reported net operating income is quite a bit lower than what's been assessed.
Correct.
And do you know what the rental rate would be using that income, that rental income?
Which one? Sorry.
The
one at the top?
Yeah, I guess the 271,000 rental income.
That one appears to be, yeah, $4.11 is what I gather that one is.
Okay. And so that is, and you'd agree then on page 18 they do have that marked as a net lease?
Yes.
Okay. I believe that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson, questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you. My question is in regards to the cap rate applied to this property, 6.35. Is that model generated?
It is, yes.
It is. So it is much higher than what we've seen with the other properties today. And I just was hoping that you could provide us with some information in that regard. What would be the factors that would drive it higher?
For sure. Definitely the year built. The effective year built is still low, 1957. So although it's just a year newer than the actual year built, so it's still a very older building. The wall height are average or below average, I would say. And let me take a peek at. I mean, their location possibly is a bit of a factor. I suppose it being a bigger property as well, so it only has the one premise, so it's more difficult to rent out. A bit of a riskier type of property.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my only question.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell?
My question's been asked, thanks.
Thank you. And my question has been asked too. Mr. Sharples?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll begin on page 3 of our submission. We have no rebuttal for this property. So on page 3 again, brief description. So our subject's 65,964 square foot warehouse. It's got an assessed year built of 1956. The current assessment amount is for $5,231,000. We're requesting that the board consider reducing this to $4,505,000. So again, we have the income breakdown that we receive on pages 4 and 5. And our request is summarized here on page 6. So once again, we've taken a look at the sales and the income for this. Our value from the comparable sales is the 4.505 million. So in this case, our requested assessment is based off the sales. Then the value we calculated from our income approach was 4,428,000. So again, these did end up fairly close in value, which kind of led us to believe that this is where the value should fall. But this was calculated using a cap rate of 7.5%, which we did get from our sales, and we understand our cap rate calculation methodology isn't perfect, and so we just felt that wasn't a strong enough argument to use here, so that's why we went with the value from the comparable sales. So again, we are requesting that the board consider reducing the value to $4,505,000. On page 7, again, we have the overhead and satellite image. And so I'll kind of just draw everyone's attention to this page a little bit, actually. So 590 Barrie, we see the bottom here is the bigger building. The building just south of it, we can see it's kind of connected by a tunnel there, is on a different roll number. That's 580 Barrie Street. It is owned by the same people. We do represent that property as well, and we did appeal it this year. So this 590 Barrie and it's 580 Barrie is the address of the other one. They are connected. And I believe that is shown in our street view photos on page 8. Yeah, so page 8 and 9, we have the photos again. Specifically on page 9, the top of the page, we have the street view photo. That is 580 Barrie on the left, and then 590 Barrie as our subject is to the right and kind of off the screen. And they are connected. We can see that through the courtyard in the parking lot, kind of there, and the bottom of the page is just another overhead. So 590 Barrie is the bigger warehouse, and then 580 Barrie is connected to it just south of our subject. And so kind of continuing on with that on page 10, this is where we looked at the sales, and like as we showed, these two properties are connected. 580 Berry Street is just south, is 20,000 square feet. It's got similar year of construction. And as mentioned, we did appeal it. And we do feel that, I mean, these properties are connected. It is the same owner. We believe that if someone were to buy either of these properties, they would, like, the two properties would sell together. I mean, they're connected. So we think these should be considered one property with a combined area of about 86,000 square feet. And so what we've done is we've looked at large warehouses. And so we see, I mean, we have some of these comparables. We got one at 91,000, 120,000, 125,000. So we believe that this should be treated as a large warehouse. And so we've identified the sales here. They range from about 54 all the way up to, looks like 73 and a half, or no, one even close to 80 here. That gets us an average of about $68 per square foot. The subject property is just under $80 a square foot. So we do believe that this indicates that it's too high. Again, we have 1300 Ellis here, the first sale. This was just after the valuation date in July of 2023. We didn't notice that right away, but in looking at it now, we did calculate the average without having that one in there, and that was $70 per square foot. So again, still lower than the 79. And from this, using that average value, the value of the subject would be that $4.5 million, as mentioned earlier. So beginning on page 11, we have the photos of the sales comparables. And they continue through until page 15. So on page 16, I kind of mentioned this earlier. We looked at the capitalization rate again. So we used our sales, tried to estimate it as best we can. This one, we don't have a ton of great leasing comparables for large warehouse properties, unfortunately. So what we did was we used the assessed rental rate of $5.63 per square foot. This is also why we haven't challenged the rental rate. We don't have great information. But based on this, using the assessed rate and the other parameters, this does support an increase to the cap rate from 6.35%. So these range from 6.35 all the way up until just under 10%. This gets us an average of about 7.5%. And so that is the cap rate that we used for our calculation. That did get us to a value of about 4.4 million, which aligns with the sales. So we do think this kind of makes sense. The reason we chose the sales value instead of this income value, though, is because of the lack of rental rate comparables, and because we did just have to apply the same rental rate to each property. So we felt that the sales were provided a little bit more of a concrete value for what this should be. And so again, just to summarize on page 17 here, we did look at both approaches. We took a look at the sales, and that indicated the value should be just over 4.5 million. We kind of used those sales to look at the cap rate and ended up with a similar value. And then we chose to go with the sales approach And we would ask the board to consider this as well and consider reducing the value to $4,505,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharples. Mr. Rokigny, questions for Mr. Sharples?
I do, yes. In regards to the cap rate, so you use a 7.5, and this is based on your page 16. Due to like, I guess, how did you come about getting the 7.5? Is it based on the average that you worked out on that page?
Yeah, it's based on the average we calculated from these.
And then in comparing to our cap rates, which column would you say you would refer it to?
Yeah, I think given the year of construction, let me just pull up your table here. But I mean, older property would say B quality. I do believe it is just the one tenant in here, so I'm not sure if that would fall. There's no single tenant B listed, so I don't know if we would just consider this industrial B, maybe.
And so I see that it's on the high end of the spectrum. What are your thoughts in regards to it being higher than most high end of the range?
Yeah, it is. That was, I mean, again, that was the value we calculated. It happened to be higher. It did line up with the sales, and that's kind of just all part of the reason we chose our requested value based on the sales approach. Is, when you just yeah, I mean, the cap rate did fit into the range, so we knew it would be a little bit on the higher end. I mean, that's the high end of the CBRE range. But yeah, I mean, that cap rate would seem a little high, and that's why we chose our requested value based on the sales.
Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thanks. Ms. Anderson?
No questions, thank you.
So, Mr. Sharples, based on your experience, is it typical for an income producing property to be assessed on the basis of sales?
No, it's uncommon. I haven't seen it very often, no.
Okay. And what would be the like in this case, you explained you just didn't have data. What would be a circumstance when it would be a good approach?
I guess an older property, maybe. If it was something where there's done like land value kind of, if the building itself doesn't have a whole lot of value in it. We represented another property that was done based on sales. It was a storage warehouse. I don't know if the property type had anything to do with it, but yeah, I mean, it is fair to say that this property would generally be done on income.
Okay, thank you. And I think you indicated you have no rebuttal evidence on this one?
No, we do not.
Okay, Ms. DeRoquigny, do you have rebuttal?
I do not.
Okay, and would you like to make a summary statement?
No, thank you.
Mr. Sharples?
Just briefly, maybe make a comment on the income and expenses that were submitted. That we hadn't seen that did indicate that the rental rate they were achieving was quite a bit lower than what was assessed. I think it was $4 and something. And I would ask the board to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will conclude item number 6. So moving on to item number 8 in our agenda. This is file number 24-1043, property address 462 Brooklyn Street. Ms. DeRoquigny?
Thank you. Yes. Roll number 0700204100. And before I continue, this is one of two properties that are connected. So with 462 Brooklyn Street and 476 Brooklyn Street, that'll be number 9. They are two buildings connected. We are defending the assessed value of $1,034,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of one building, one premise, one story, with an actual and effective year build of 1977. It contains a wall height of 15 feet, leasable area of 6,840 square feet, land to plan area of 1.77. Maps are provided on page 3. It is near Century Street off of St. Matthews Avenue or Silver Avenue. Aerial views are provided on page 4. Exterior and interior photos to follow, page 6 through to 9. We provided 5 rent comparables on page 10 with leasing starting in 2018 to 2022. An area range of 5,280 to 8,106 square feet, wall height of 18 to 24 feet, an effective year built of 1973 to 1984, and a net rent of $6.50 to $14 per square foot. Our income workup is provided on page 11. The one premise of 6,840 square feet has a rent of $9.82 per square foot. Provide a potential rent of $67,169. We reduce that by a vacancy loss of 4.5% plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot. This gives us the net operating income of $60,991. We've capitalized that at 5.9%. In which generates our capitalized value of $1,033,746, rounded up to our final value of $1,034,000. Our capitalization rates are on page 13, and our cap is set at 5.9, which is within the industrial range. Income and expense questionnaire is provided on page 15 through 19. Advising owner occupied on page 16. However, also indicating a monthly rent of, it appears, $3,137, in which I've calculated it to be a $5.50 rent. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $1,034,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sharples.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few questions on the rent comparables on page 10. Pretty significant range in rental rates on these comparables. Are these all warehouse spaces?
I have them all as similar to the subject, them being flex warehouses and in the same market region.
Okay. I believe that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson, questions?
Yes, just in regards to your rent comparables there on page 10, the wall height ranges from 18 feet to 24 feet. And what did you say the subject property's wall height was?
It is 15. It is lower than
Yeah,
those.
it's lower. So you weren't able to find a comparable with?
Unfortunately, no, not with the similar square footage and effective year built and the same market region. The closest is the 18 one.
Okay, so for a flex warehouse, what is the desirable wall height range? What would be, considered the optimum?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, flex warehouse can be used for anything, right? It's a variety of options. So I'm not sure if it's the most important. I'm sure it is important. I mean, 15 feet, it is on the low side, but I'm not sure how much of value it is, to be honest.
Okay. And so would that wall height though be factored into the cap rate or the rental rate generated by the model?
It would be, yes.
Okay. Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell?
Well, my computer just died.
No.
However, I did have a question in regards to the monthly rent. You stated it as in their actuals, but I can't bring it up anymore.
In the income and expense.
Yes.
They indicated the 3,137 monthly. So annually I calculated 37,644. So I think there's two parts there. 3137.
But did I see they were using 7,200 square feet
Yes.
and not the 6,840?
No, that is what they indicated, but I think, and that's
Okay.
that's the difference that I have. You caught it. So yes, I use theirs with their square footage is $5.23, but what I indicated was ours because we have a lower square footage for the $5.50. I don't think the square footage should be higher than what we have it at.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you. Was this property inspected recently?
This one, yes, with those interior photos, those two coworkers were able to go a few weeks ago for me.
Okay. Because I also note that on page 16, there's yet another square footage of 8,100 square feet by the looks of it. So this says it's owner occupied though, right? With one tenant?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And the same tenant is occupying both properties. And that could be the confusion of the square footage as well as the two buildings.
Right. Maybe they're using some of the square footage from the different building.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I guess I have no other questions. Thank you. Mr. Sharples.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we do have a rebuttal for this property as well.
Thank you.
You would like me to proceed with our
let's deal with your main evidence first, and when we're done asking questions about it, we'll go to your rebuttal.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. Begin on page 3 of our submission, as per usual. So again, as mentioned, that this has been assessed as a 6,840 square foot warehouse property. The current assessment amount is for $1,034,000, and we're asking the board consider reducing this to $838,000. On page 4, we have the assessment that we get from the City of Winnipeg website. We had a bit of an issue with the assessment notices and accessing the income breakdown online. But I mean, I reached out to the assessor and that information was provided right away. So no issues there, but that's why we don't have the income breakdown included in our submission. We did receive the information, however, and that's been included on page 5. So just in the left column, I guess, that is the assessed breakdown. So vacancy allowance of 4.5%, cap rate 5.9%. We had no issue with any of that. We are requesting a change to the rental rate. And so the value we've calculated from our income approach was the $838,000. And then again, we took a look at the sales. The value based on that we got was $845,000. And so given those two values lined up pretty closely, that kind of indicated to us that this is roughly where the value should fall. And for this one, we did choose the income approach again. And so we are asking the board consider $838,000. On page 6, once again, this is our assessment map and satellite image with the street view photos on page 7. So page 8 is where we took a look at our sales. So the assessment value was for just over $151 per square foot. We'd identified the sales here range in square footage from about 2,500 all the way up to about 16,000. Sales from 2019 all the way up until February 2023. And the range of values here is from about $100 per square foot all the way up to about $145 per square foot. And from that we get an average of $120.50 per square foot. One comparable to point out here is the third one, 482, 484 Brooklyn Street. So again, this is right down the road from the subject, sold in August 2021 for $123.64. And so that $123.64 is the value we used, and the value of the subject property at $123.64 would be the $845,673. And so again, that just indicates that the current assessment value is too high. I mean, every one of these sales is sold for less than the current assessment on a per square foot basis. And then beginning on page 9 is the street view photos of the comparables. And on page 10 at the top of the page is where we have, this is the 482 to 484 Brooklyn. So again, it's just down the street from the subject. And then just similar building height, year of construction, all that stuff. And then the photos of comparables continue through to page 13. And so on page 14, we've taken a look at the rental rates. So the assessed rental rate was for $9.82 per square foot. We've identified leasing below that seems to indicate that this probably should be closer to $7.75, $8. So the leases we've identified, they're all current leases, and they range from a little over $7 a square foot up till $9.86 per square foot. And so based on this, we do feel like the $9.82 per square foot is too high. And we're requesting a rental rate of $8 per square foot, which is, I guess, would be kind of rounding up from the average we got here. And then just looking at some of these leases, they're generally pretty close. I mean, some are a little bit further outside, but we do have the bottom lease here 1344 Spruce Street. It is pretty similar. It is newer from 2021 at $9.86. So we thought some of the newer leasing is a little bit higher. So let's go with the $8 per square foot. And so then beginning on page 15, we have the photos of the leasing comparables. And those continue through to page 18. I'll mention, I guess, while we're on the rental rate, kind of the reported rental rate from the income and expenses. We didn't include anything with that just because it is an owner occupied property, so we're not entirely sure how they came up with that with the monthly rent or how they do their accounting for that. So that's why that subject property lease hasn't been used and hasn't been included. It also is quite a bit lower. So just to summarize on page 19, again, we've looked at the income approach and at the sales approach. So based on the comparable sales, we got to a value of $845,000. We took a look at leasing comparables and determined that the assessed rental rate should probably be closer to $8 per square foot. And so from that, we calculated $838,000. And we would ask the board to consider this and consider reducing the assessment to $838,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brobigny, do you have questions for Mr. Sharples?
I do, thank you. I was just looking at your rental rates you have here on page 14.
Oh, it looks like we lost our assessor for a minute.
Let's just give her a bit.
Okay.
It was unfortunate timing.
Yes, very unfortunate.
I've just emailed her
Okay.
to see where she's at and told her that she could use just audio if that helps. Oh. Here we go. It'll appear shortly.
Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. We
Yeah, can
can't
hear you.
see you.
Okay, internet connection is not working so well.
No. Do you have your video on? We can't see you.
Yeah, it's not allowing me to unclick it at the moment. It's thinking about it.
Okay. Ms. Harland, you said we can continue just with audio?
Yes, we can, if you like.
Yeah, I think we should try, and then we can continue to try the video, which is preferable, but
Yeah,
I think we should just move forward the best we can. So, Mr. Rokigny, you were up, and it was your turn to ask questions about Mr. Sharple's presentation.
okay. I was I was in deep thought. I was talking.
Yes.
So my first question was in regards to the rent comparables. And now I have to put it back up here. Yes, on page 14. It was in regards to some of them being larger in size. Would you say you had quite a few that were larger in size in comparison to the subject property?
Yeah, some of them were obviously the one at a few at 15,000 and the one at 17,000. I think if we were to pull those out though, I think the rental rate would be even lower. I mean, we got the one 1801 Sergeants at $878 dollars per square foot. 1199 St. James, $771 per square foot. So yeah, they are bigger, but those properties seem to have higher rental rates as well.
And my follow-up concern as well was in regards to the year built. Would you say that most of them were older than the subject property?
Yeah, let me just go back to the year date. So yeah, 1977. Yeah, so they are. The reason we have a dash to that table there was just the whole gong show of trying to get the income breakdowns. We didn't actually have the year of construction available to us. And it wasn't on the breakdown that you'd sent me as well. So we didn't know the year of construction until reviewing your submission.
Fair enough. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, questions for the applicant?
Oh, it's in regards to page 14. Like, would you agree that 1344 Spruce is your best comparable?
Yeah, I think it probably is. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Sharples, would you agree or not agree that a newer property would command a higher rental rate? Or does that matter when it comes to a flex warehouse?
Yeah, generally I would say yeah. I mean, if you want a nicer space, you're gonna have to pay a little bit more for it. I would say it probably matters less for a warehouse than it would for, say, an office or retail property. But generally, yeah, I would say newer. Probably would expect the rental rate to be a little bit higher.
Okay. And do you have the wall height information on these ones?
We don't in our brief. Let's see if we. Yeah, I mean, we do have some of them included. It's in our spreadsheet. I don't know why we hid the column when we put this in. We have them all except the one for 1344 Spruce. So maybe that's the reason we included it. But the 1199 St. James is 21 feet. And the rest are all kind of around 14. So 1368 Border Street, we got 14, 1200 514, 1107 513, King Edward's 14, 1801 Sergeant is 17, and St. Matthew's is 14.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I do not have any additional questions. You indicated you had rebuttal.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, give us just a minute to
Yep.
make sure we see that. Okay, I do have it. Everybody else have it? Mr. Rogigny, do you have it?
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Sharples then.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, just on page 3, we've provided a rebuttal to the rent comparables that were on page 10 of the assessor brief. So we've just kind of gone through similar to what we did for one of those other properties. The first one at 322 Salto, that's a good comparable as far as we can tell. And that one was at $6.50 per square foot. It's a little bit bigger. Does have quite a bit higher wall height, but it is newer. And that's at $6.50. We've marked that as a good comparable. The next 3 are 1100 Waverly Street. So this is the Fort Garry Business Park. So it is in Fort Garry. I have it stated here as different region. I can't remember off the top of my head if it's in that different market region for assessment purposes. I'm not sure if it would have the different parameters, but this was kind of just meant more as in it is in a different area of the city. It might still be the same market region, but this is in Fort Garry, and we do generally see higher rental rates in the southwest part of the city. I think that's because there's newer stuff down there. But we do have some information on that on the following pages. And then the last one we have marked as a good comparable as well. 220 Cree Crescent, pretty similar in size and year built, a little bit closer in terms of wall height. That was at $9 a square foot. And so we do add those two at Salto and Cree Crescent into our leasing comparables in a couple pages. Here's the image on the bottom of page 3 of 322 Salto. So again, we've agreed that this is a good comparable, and we've included it. And then on page 4, sorry, we have 100 or 1100 Waverly Street. So again, the star at the map is the subject property, Brooklyn Street, so just southwest of St. James there. And then 1100 Waverly Street is down in Fort Garry here. And so it is further away. And then we have a photo of the building at the bottom of page 4 here. And so this doesn't really seem to be a warehouse property in looking at it. I mean, the picture at the bottom of page 8 there, we see the first unit there, how restaurant, we've got a sign for a lunch buffet in the window. And then so just on page 5 here, we kind of look at this a little bit closer. So some of these comparables. So one of them was unit 11. This was the lease that was signed in 2022 for 10 years at $11.55 per square foot. So this is a CrossFit gym, Undefeated CrossFit. We can see there from the directory from Google, this is 1100 Waverly Street, unit 11. And then we've got some personal trainers in there and physical therapy, it would appear as well. So again, we don't think this space is comparable to the subject property and should not be used as a comparable lease. Because again, this appears to be a gym with some personal training and physical therapy options. Unit 16 was another one that was listed as a comparable. That was from 2019. 5-year lease signed at $8.75 per square foot. And unit 16, we can see from this directory here, the second one down, this is Stella's Catering. So this is a catering company, a caterer. So again, we don't really know how comparable that lease would be to a warehouse lease. And then there's no tenant listed for unit 9. That was the third comparable from this building. But just the building itself just does not seem to be comparable to a small warehouse property. And yeah, we can't tell what's in unit 9 from street view. There's not an angle to get there. So, but just doesn't appear to be a warehouse building. And the bottom of page 5 there is just 220 Creek Crescent. So we've agreed that that's a good comparable. And we've added that to our analysis on the top of page 6. So again, these are the leases we had before. We've added the 2 that were provided by the city. That does help with the year built. You see, we added in the 1977 to this table once we were able to get that year of construction confirmed. And the average from all these comparables added together is still $7.80 per square foot. The average of those 2 comparables that were provided by the city, Salto Crescent and Creek Crescent, the average of those 2 is $7.75 per square foot. And so we just believe that all this further supports our requested rental rate of $8 per square foot. And we would ask the board to take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharples. And Mr. Rokeme, glad to see your face again. Do you have questions on the rebuttal evidence, please?
Yes, and as you can see, I missed some of that. I had to relocate myself.
I see that.
Definitely some, I think there's a black hole somewhere in that room. I don't know. For the internet there. I suppose my only comment is, as I'm sure Mr. Sharples has seen, it was quite difficult to find very similar properties, some very good comparables. In regards to the, so yeah, I must have missed that. In regards to the Waverly one, for some reason, when I chosen them at the time, it seemed to have been the same market region for some reason. But in looking at them now, I do see that they're a little older than the subject property, it being 1973. So that kind of, there's different characteristics, changes there. But I guess that's the only comment I have to make, but no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, questions on the rebuttal evidence?
Just on that page 6, 1344 Spruce or 322 Soto Crescent. The rental rate at $650 seems to be low in comparison.
Is there a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just like, why is it so low in comparison to the rest?
I can't answer that. I haven't seen the lease agreement or anything. That was just the rental rate that was listed.
It was just listed. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Mr. or Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions. Mr. Rokene, summary statement?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Sharples?
I do not either. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that will conclude item number 8. Let's move on to the final item on our agenda, which is item number 9, file number 24-1040. This is 476 Brooklyn Street. Ms. DeRoquigny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Roll number 0700020700. We are defending the assessed value of $935,000 for the 2025 roll year based on the reference date of April 1, 2023. It consists of one building, two premises with one story. We have an actual year build and effective year build of 1968. It's a bit of an older year build there. A wall height of 17 feet. A leasable area of 5,800 square feet and a land to plan area of 1.40. Maps are provided on page 3. Similar property, it's right next to it. Aerial views on page 4 and 5. Exterior photos, page 5 and 6, as well as interior photos provided on page 6 and 7. We have provided 5 rent comparables on page 8, all in the same market region, but as I'm seeing it now, we have it as Waverly. All flex warehouses, like the subject property, leasing starting in 2017 to 2020, an area range of 1,556 to 4,500 square feet, with a wall height of 20 to 22 feet, effective year build of 1973 to 1975, and a net rent of $12 to $18 per square foot. Our income workup is provided on page 9 with the two premises totaling to 5,800 square feet, has a blended rent of $10.81, providing potential rent of $62,695. We reduce that by a vacancy loss of 4.5% plus expenses at 3%, with the shortfall at $4 per square foot, giving us the net operating income of $57,034. We've capitalized that at 6.10%, in which generates our capitalized value of $934,984, rounded up to our final value of $935,000. Our capitalization rates are provided on page 11. Our 6.10 is in the middle of this range. Income and expense questionnaire provided page 13 to 17, advising owner occupied. However, similar as to the previous property, advising a rent of about $5.23 with the leasable area of 8,100. But we do have this property at 5,800 square feet. So with what we have, the square footage, I gather a $7.30 rent. Based on this evidence, we believe that the assessed value of $935,000 to be fair and equitable, and ask for it to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sharples, questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll start with the income breakdown on page 9, and I get understanding that the assessments of comparable properties can't be used as evidence, but could you explain why the rental rate for this property is so much higher than the property we just discussed, even though they're connected? Why one's $1.50 per square foot more?
Yeah, for sure. Let me just pull out the previous one. I mean, definitely I feel it's due to the leasable area space. So this one having two premises, dividing up the space, technically the smaller space will provide a higher rent. Whereas here, the previous one, we had the 6,840 square feet, gave us the $9.82. So that's kind of the difference I see, is with the smaller space will provide a higher rent.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, I guess how has this breakdown been determined? Because in the income and expenses, they've reported that the property is fully occupied, and the same with the other one. with just one area. So where does the 4,200 square feet and the 1,500 square feet come from? Like why is that? Yeah, I guess where does that come from?
Yeah, the way that they're separated like that.
Yeah.
We do have them as two premises in our system. Right, they're both the same year built. It must have been a breakdown of the building itself, like a division in the property. It could have two tenants, possibly, in those two spaces. Yeah.
Okay. Just the rent comparables on page 8 again. I mean, these are all, the rental rates are all quite a bit higher than the subject. I mean, I guess, how did we get from comparables ranging from $12 a square foot to $18 a square foot? How did we then end up at the assessed rates of about 1075?
There are differences, like I do see the location is not in the same area, so definitely these are in a better location, I would say. This property in particular, the 1968, is a bit older than this property as well. And the wall height is a bit higher than the 17 feet of the subject property. So they are more superior of comparables. I would agree with you on that. They are different. It was difficult to find, again, similar comparables with this property.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson, questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you. On your page 4, showing the pictures of the subject property, it indicates different numbers. In the bottom photo, it indicates property number 476 Brooklyn and 480 Brooklyn. So I initially thought that's the two separate premises, but then on the upper picture, on the right-hand side, it indicates 482, 480, and 476. Like, are those all the subject property?
It would be, yes. And I'm just going to take a quick peek here before I give you my final answer. Log in here. Okay, so for this property in particular, it does say the primary is 476 and secondary is 480. So the 482, I'm not sure where that's coming from. And perhaps Mr. Sharples can answer that question.
Yeah, I think the subject is just is 476 to 480. I think the separate roll was 482 to 484. I'm just trying to think back. We had a sales comparable that was, I believe, 482. Yeah, and it is on page 8 of our submission if anyone wants to reference it. But one of the comparables we've used was 482 to 484 Brooklyn. So I think that's connected but separate from our subject property. I think our subject's 476 and 480.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my only question. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Arnell, questions
No.
for the assessor?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. I have no other questions also. So, Mr. Sharples.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we do have rebuttal again.
Okay, thank you.
So just page 3 of our evidence submission. I'm sure this is starting to look pretty familiar to everyone. This subject's a 5,800 square foot warehouse. Current assessment values for $935,000, and we're requesting a value of $687,000. Page 4, this is from the assessment search online. So again, similar situation here. We weren't able to access the breakdown, but we were able to get it without any issues. And that's all punched into our table on page 5 here. So again, at the time of this, we didn't have the year built available to us. So that's why that's blank. But the assessed income breakdown led us to just under $935,000. The value we've calculated was off that change to the rental rate. So similar argument to 462 Brooklyn here. And so from the income approach, we've got a value of $687,000. Once again, we've looked at the sales, and the value, if we were to look at this based on the comparable sales, would be $717,000. So since we had both those values, that made it look to us like the current assessment was too high. And we are asking the board consider reducing this to $687,000 based off the income approach. And so again, page 6, we have the assessment map satellite image, and then the street view photos on page 7. And page 8 is where we take a look at the sales. So again, the current assessment value is for a little more than $161 per square foot. We've got the sales comparables here again from about 100 to 145 per square foot. Got an average of $120.50 per square foot. And as mentioned there, we have the sale of 482 to 484 Brooklyn Street. So this does neighbor the subject property. It is at the bottom of page 7. You can see it. This comparable sale is, you can see a corner of it in the bottom right there. This is I don't think it's connected to the subject, but it is right beside it. And so again, that sold in 2021 for $123.64 per square foot. And so that being our best comparable is what we've used. So using that value, we get the $717,000 for the subject property if it were to be done on sales. And so again, we have the images of the comparables beginning on page 9. Again, the top of page 10 this is 482 to 484 Brooklyn. We can see the subject property in the upper left corner of it. They are right next to each other. And those images continue all the way through to page 13. And so on page 14, again, we've taken a look at the rental rate. So the assessment for this one uses a rental rate of $10.81 per square foot, which is higher than the other Brooklyn Street property, but I mean they're side by side, and so we've used the same comparables. So these are all the same leasing comparables as the previous property we talked about. We do believe that it supports a lower rate. So again, we get an average of about $7.81 per square foot from all these comparables. We have requested, we just kind of rounded up and we're requesting a rental rate of $8 per square foot based off some of these comparables. And so again, starting page 15 through to 18, those are the street view photos of those comparables. And so again, summarize quickly here on page 19, we took a look at the sales. The property next door sold in 2021 for about $123 per square foot. If our subject was to be assessed using the sales comparison approach at that value, the assessment value would be $717,000. And then we also took a look at comparable leasing. Thought a rental rate of $8 per square foot would be reasonable. We had no issues with any of the other income parameters, and that got us to a value of $687,000. And we would request that the board consider reducing the assessment to that amount. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rokigny?
Thank you. Yes, just a question in regards to your rent comparables. You're stating that you had used the same. So in regards to the leasable area, noticing again the larger square footage, did you ever consider, in regards to this one in particular, searching for leasable area individually for the two premises rather than at whole?
No, we generally look at the total area. Typically the income breakdowns we get from the website don't have the space type. It only shows us the total area. And so usually we're kind of looking at a blended rental rate because we don't have all that information. And I can't remember off the top of my head if the breakdown you sent included that breakdown or not. But no, we looked for comparables closer to the total area.
That's all my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell?
Again, I would just like to ask on is 1344 Spruce your best comparable in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it still would be. It definitely was for the previous one. I mean, the subject property for this one's a little bit older. So it maybe kind of make the argument for 1368 Border Street, the top one there. Just because it is similar in size, still very similar in terms of year of construction, and this was signed in 2022 at $7.25 per square foot. So for this one, since it is a little bit older than the other Brooklyn Street property, I would maybe add that one in as well.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sharples, do they, and maybe you don't know this, maybe you do these two properties together, do they submit one income and expense questionnaire for both, or do they split them?
So I believe they split them. It appears they split them based off what's been included in the assessor's submission. We've seen a few where they combine. I think since they're different roll numbers, I think they're supposed to split them up if they can.
What about their financial statements? Like their own accounting?
I would assume that is all done together. And I think if we look at their income and expense submissions, I think that's why these areas might be a little bit off. I mean, we're talking about the previous Brooklyn Street one. It didn't really line up. I think this one's a little different. And I think it's because they have it all done together for themselves. And I think they kind of tried to split it up for these submissions. So I think that's why the building areas are a little different for some of these.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think they do try to split it up since they are on different roll numbers.
Could the two be split in terms of it's the same owner, I'm assuming. Can they be split off from each other?
You mean like
One piece sold without the other piece?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know if do we have interior photos. I think so. I think I think 462 Brooklyn, the previous property we looked at, and 476 Brooklyn, I would think those two can. I don't know about 476 and 480. So I assume I think 476 and 480 being the two units within the subject. I don't know if that could be split off, but yeah, I think 476 and 462, the two properties we've looked at today, I think could.
So they're joined physically right now for the purposes of their own business needs, but they don't need to be joined if there was a decision to sell one piece.
Yeah, so I don't know what it looks like on the inside, just from the overhead images. The buildings are together, so I don't know if they've had a wall knocked down, or I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I've never been inside the
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's fair enough. You indicated you did have rebuttal.
Yes, we do.
Okay, give us a minute. Okay, I have it. Does everybody else have it? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Sharples.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, somewhat similar to the previous file we looked at, I'll try to move through this fairly quickly. So page 8, rent comparables, we've done a similar thing. We noticed these are all from this Waverly Street block. So this is these are all from the Fort Garry Business Park. So as mentioned previously, this is in Fort Garry, a little further from the subject property. And we believe that these are not these leases are not comparable to warehouse spaces, and kind of get into that on the following pages. So the first one here on page 4, this is unit 1. And so this was signed in 2019 for 5 years, just over 1,500 square feet, and a rental rate of $18 a square foot. But kind of mentioned this earlier from in the photo of it. This is the How restaurant. So you see here from the directory from Google, How restaurant, located at 1100 Waverly Street, unit number 1. So again, this was at $18 per square foot. That kind of jumped out to us right away. That seems way too high for a warehouse lease, and sure enough, this appears to be for a restaurant. So this is the directory from Google we have here, and then yeah, the image at the bottom of the page, that this is a restaurant space. On page 5, so same building, this is unit 8. So this was the 4th comparable listed, similar in terms of area, signed 2019. This one's at $13 a square foot. And we see here, this is Eurograph. This is a graphic designer. So I mean, maybe could be warehouse in a way, I guess, maybe if they're printing t-shirts or something, but we're not really sure how comparable this building is to a warehouse. I mean, this could be more of an office. I mean, we don't this doesn't seem as comparable to the subject. One of the last comparable from within the 1100 block of Waverly Street here was unit 14. There's nothing listed in the directory, so we don't know what tenant occupies that one specifically. It's at $14 per square foot. But I mean, we have all kinds of different tenants in here that would lead us to believe that this is not a great comparable for warehouse space. I think there's a hockey association has their offices in there. There's a First Nations educational center. The catering we mentioned earlier, gym and stuff. So I just don't really feel like this leases from this building are accurate comparables to the subject. Looking at another lease here, this is the second one listed at $12 a square foot. This is 1140 Waverly Street, unit 4. So we don't know, again, this is all just listed as floor 1. This is in the same complex, just a different building. And so the tenants at 1140 is a laser tag center, a physiotherapist, or 2 physiotherapists, and then engineering consultants. So again, we don't really feel that this is super comparable to the space use of the subject. And then the last comparable at the top of page 6 here, the last comparable from that list was for $13 a square foot, signed in 2020, 1146 Waverly Street, unit 9. This looks like it's medical office space. This is Milestones Therapy, so a therapist clinic. And so again, all these comparables from this business park that's in a different market region, and we just don't feel that these leases are comparable to the subject. And so we would ask the board to take that into consideration when making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rokigny, questions on the rebuttal?
Yes, Mr. Sharples, would you agree that it was difficult to find similar comparables to the subject property?
Yeah, I would.
So with that being said, what I was trying to do also with choosing these in particular was finding the individual space. So breaking up the 2 premises to show that there could be 2 tenants in those 2 premises. But yes, and even in the total square footage, it was very difficult to find similar comparables. But that is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, questions on the rebuttal?
No questions at this time, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
I have no questions, thank you.
And Ms. Rokigny, you have no questions or no rebuttal evidence?
I do not.
Okay, would you care to make a summary statement on this item?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sharples?
No, thank you. I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for your presentations today. So we have now heard all items on our docket, and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you very much for your presentations today.
Thank you so much. I apologize for the internet connection.
Bye-bye. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye. Madam Chair, may we take a short break?
Yeah, how long do we need, folks? 10 minutes? Is that enough, Ms. Harland?
That's fine with me, thank you.
Okay, so how about we come back at 12:05? Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay,
Sure.
I'll take us offline.
thank you.
That'll probably happen back to the wrong